podcast.
Okay. Hi, everyone. We are live. Um, we can recenter. Okay. Well, first and foremost, welcome back to another Let's Talk About It. This is Denise Frasier-Newsome. And before I get into a little bit more about who Denise is, I wanted to share with you guys, I'm really excited about tonight because you guys know we've done several of these. Let's talk about it. And we usually talk to different corporate women, business women, but we have never, ever, ever done an educator. And so I kept thinking about it. I was like, I really want to bring in more creatives, educators, some different type of conversations. And that being said, I could not bring on an educator without introducing my sister. So many of you guys may not know this, but Denise Frasier-Newsome is my sister, and she is going to be in the upcoming issue, or one of the upcoming issues, I should say, Behind Her Brand. So let me do this real quick so I can share with you guys. We're going to be talking to her about her experience, her background, and just some really good questions that I've always wanted to ask an educator that I know loves what they do. So if you have any questions I call her Nikki, but y'all see her name is Denise, but I call her Nikki.
I prefer
If you guys have any questions, definitely put them in a chat. We will definitely address as many of them as we can. So that all being said, welcome Denise,
Good
Nikki,
evening. Good evening.
to our live stream tonight. Okay, so tell me a little bit about yourself, or tell them a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I've been an educator for about 18 years now,
Mhm.
going on 18 years. I've always worked with kids, starting from middle school all the way up. My jobs have been working in daycares, working in the church nursery. Kids have always been my passion.
Yes.
And I have been in two different districts throughout my career. Um, I've enjoyed both. They've given me different experiences in both.
Yes.
Um, I I have grown to the educator that I am today in a
Mhm.
lot of ways. So I don't know if you'll have any questions about that, but um, there's been some things that have changed in education. So
Yes.
there's been changes in how I teach,
Mhm.
and the other part that I would say, as far as my background in teaching, is I have always had a passion and love for it,
Yeah.
despite what's going on. I try to find the positive, no
Yeah.
matter what, and everything. It's hard.
And I want to cover that too. Yeah, I want to cover some of that tonight. And so
Yeah.
I'm looking down here because I want to make sure, like, if you have questions, if anyone's having trouble getting in, let me know. I'm making sure everything is set on all of our fronts here. So let me ask you this: why education? Like, what makes you passionate about being an educator, especially? Well, let me not say especially because of now. Just in general, why are you passionate about it?
I'm passionate because I feel like I'm able to touch so many lives.
Hmm.
Um, when I stopped to look at it just recently, too, I realized that in 1 year, I have 2 school years. And
Oh,
so
yeah,
I'm able to experience kids in so many ways. And just knowing that I had an impact on their life
yeah,
um, just helps me feel like my life has a purpose.
yeah,
That's one of my life's purposes, is to teach kids.
yeah. Well, one of the things, one reason I also wanted to have you on here is because obviously I know you, you're my sister, but I know that you are genuinely very passionate about education. So I want to ask you something, and I know that this is a discussion that sometimes I know we have, and I'm sure you and your fellow colleagues have as well. There was a story just yesterday, and I won't go into too many specifics because I don't know all the background of it. But it made national news with a student that was upset for getting his Nintendo Switch taken away from him. And the video, it showed him charging the teacher and hitting her, and she was completely knocked out. And my thought was around that is, how do you show up as an educator feeling inspired,
Yeah.
feeling excited, feeling all the different things that you went into the field for, when nowadays the environment is so different?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
violence is sadly become commonplace in many
Yes.
ways. How do you show up in that way?
So I just recently saw this video and heard about this story. And situations like these are happening far too often.
Yeah,
Um, I think one of the things you have to purpose in your heart, that you're here for these kids, education wise,
yeah,
but also in other ways. I was jokingly on the playground the other day, and I told a teacher, I said, "You do know we're counselor we're the therapist, we're the mother, we're the nurse, we're the
Yeah.
teacher. And so when you really get to know your students and you build that relationship with them,
Yeah.
you're able to show up, because then you're able to show up not just as a teacher, but
Yeah.
then become that person that they feel comfortable and safe and secure with.
Right.
So it no longer becomes an option to show up. It becomes natural for you to show up. It's
Mm-hmm.
not something that you have to force yourself to do. Now, is it hard? Yeah. There's
Yeah.
times you walk in that school building and it's kind of like you feel the tension, but then you also know it's a new day. It's
Yeah.
new things that are about to happen in that day. And I tell my students, what happened yesterday, I'm not going to hold against you.
Yeah.
So you can hold on to it. I hope you don't, but I'm done with it. Let's
Yeah.
focus on STEM and what we can do.
I love that, because you read so many things now in the news with educators, people leaving the profession, people not feeling as inspired. So as colleague to colleague, I know that you have an amazing group of women around you at your school. How do you all encourage each other to kind of keep that same spirit that you just mentioned?
I have been blessed to have some Christian ladies in my circle, and
Mm-hmm.
so when you, for me, and for us, the ones that I talk to, when you have God in your life, then you find that peace, you find that center, you find the commonality of being able to vent and understanding that it's a venting moment.
Yeah.
It's not a mindset that you're going to keep permanent, or you're going to have and you're going to take it into how you teach. So
Mm-hmm.
I think the circle of women that I've been able to be around, we have those real conversations,
Yeah.
but we also know that it's not a characteristic of who that teacher is.
Exactly.
They're talking about the moment that they've experienced.
That makes sense. Well,
Mhm.
let me take a quick second just to say hi to Lena. Hey, Lena. Nice to have you join
Hi,
us.
hi, Auntie.
And hi to Carol. Nice to have you join us. So, if you guys are joining on, if you have questions, please let us know, and we'll do our best to hop on and answer them. So, Nikki, let me ask you this: you are known, in my opinion, as being highly engaging, unconventional at times,
Yes, absolutely.
very creative,
Yes,
and all the different things with students. And I know that there's been times in different schools that you've worked at that you only worked at two. I'm sorry, the two schools you worked at. Sometimes people say, let's give Nikki these students here because they needed extra attention. I'll say
yeah.
that.
Mhm.
um, how do you balance that as well, because I know that can take a lot of stress in working with students that need a little bit of extra attention, and especially with the way school systems are these days, you can't always give every kid that time. So how do you manage that?
So funny you bring this up, because we just had a conversation about this. Um, I think I balance it because this has become my norm.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
I have always been the teacher that's given the behavior, the at risk, um, my special needs babies.
Yeah.
And so I embrace it. I do. It definitely becomes a challenge.
Yeah.
It becomes a challenge because you're not only trying to teach them the curriculum, but you're trying to teach to every single individual level that
Hmm.
you have in your classroom. So
Yeah.
the concept of teaching to the middle is no longer teaching to the middle anymore.
Mm.
We literally have to meet each child at their needs
Yeah.
and where they need to be. Um, so I think one of the things that I've been able to do is just realize, when it comes to having a classroom that's varied
Hmm.
in how they learn, you build that relationship. You learn if this person likes jokes and laughter,
Hmm.
I include that.
Yeah.
I'm very unconventional. I absolutely abhor textbooks. Um,
Really?
I
Okay.
do. I don't use them, and I don't
Okay.
use them at all, and
Yeah.
not even for reference, because a
Mm.
lot of times, in my personal opinion, they're biased. They're very stoic. Yes, there's good pictures and there's good facts and there's good things in them. I'm not saying they're all bad. I'm not saying that, but I also feel like kids, they learn through interest and engagement and
Mhm.
doing and being and talking and collaborating. I don't want my class quiet.
Yeah.
I do want my class to talk. I want them to be on task, but I do
Right.
want them to talk. And so I do a lot of collaborative work. And
Yeah.
I want them to research. Go look and see what you can find. So, and that touches on everybody's different learning styles.
Yeah.
Um, I allow them to show me their creativity in projects. I did have a teacher one time say, that's all you do is projects. And my thing was, but through projects, they learn research, they
Yeah.
learn how to study, how to work together, how to create, how to outline, I mean, you learn so many skills.
Mhm. Well, I like that, because I feel like when you said that you try to meet them where they are too, coupled with obviously your own expertise,
Yeah.
that I remember a time when we were all in schools, like we really respected our educators. We loved going to school for the most part, but
Yeah. I
but
love
there was yeah, and there was more attention to, I think, making sure that we were getting what we needed to get from it.
it.
So let me ask you this. So even with that, because I know you do primarily elementary, but you also outside the school with church and everything, you work with different other age groups.
Mhm.
How do you balance being the educator and not coming off as a friend?
Mm,
Yeah.
yes. So I have to set boundaries. I
Mhm.
have to make it known that, yes, you can tell me anything.
Mhm.
I have a talk to me journal in my classroom.
Oh,
This has
okay.
become a concept that I enjoy because the kids talk to me. They tell me what's going on. If
Yeah.
there's something going on, they write it down. But I also had to make it clear that
Yeah.
if it's something legal, it's something that could hurt or harm them,
Yeah.
or it's something that I'm obligated to share, I'm going to be right there supporting you. I'm
Yeah.
going to be right there standing by you. But I have to report certain things. Um,
Mm.
so I've made it still a safe place because they know that I'm going to be right there
Yeah.
as much as I can, um, and it's worked.
Yeah.
It's worked. But that's definitely a tough spot because you don't ever want to be the teacher that is only friendly with
Yeah.
the kids because you do have to have discipline. You do have to have structure.
Mhm.
So I don't want to say I have a switch,
Yeah.
but I definitely make my expectations known.
Right.
I don't have rules in my classroom, but I let them know I
Hmm.
expect you to behave in a manner that's representative of you,
Yeah.
your household, society. Like I expect y'all to behave the way you know you're supposed to behave.
That's really interesting. Not
Mhm.
having like rules and that structure. Do you find that kids are receptive to that, and also parents? Because I know there's also a whole other element, which I'm sure will take about 2-3 hours to talk about parents, but like not having those rules and not having that formalized structure has helped them like learn better and engage better.
I think I've been really blessed. I've had parents that actually enjoy that because their kids
Okay.
aren't as stressed.
Hmm.
They're not as stressed. It doesn't feel like a prison cell
Yeah.
classroom. Um, there again, it goes back to when you set those expectations and you let them know this is what I need you to do, A, B,
Right.
C. Um, Now, how it looks, that's your creative style, but this is what I expect. Then I think it works. I have never, in the past, I shouldn't say never, in the past 10 years, I haven't given out homework.
Yeah.
And so I did have some parents that were like, my child needs homework. And I was like, no, they've been in school 7 hours. They do not need homework.
Yeah.
Give them a break because all you're going to do is create stress. And at the end of the day, I'm not grading the homework. So,
Yeah.
what's the benefit in doing the homework?
Yeah.
I believe in extra practice, but I don't give it. I tell the parents if you want to give extra practice, that's fine. So, I've had some parents that didn't like the homework aspect of my class, but they
Right.
definitely love. I message my parents a lot. I give myself access to them, so
Mhm.
whenever they message me, it comes right on my phone. Um, so I think having that communication with parents, especially on Meet the Teacher night, I make it known. I am here for your parents. I mean, for your kids,
Right.
but I am also strict in certain areas of my teaching.
We just saw one of the parents. I just put it up there real quick. That said that you were one of the best teachers her son has ever had, Ernesto. Um, who I know, well, since I know Felicia a little bit, her son is amazing, and I know she would always
Yes,
share how amazing of
yes,
an educator that you were. So, and he's so
yes.
talented, so talented. So, and I love everything you're saying because it reminds me of how we were raised in the educational system, where parents did talk to the educators and back and forth, and more importantly, there was a relationship there that helped with the environment. So, if you had to pick 3 things right now in the educational system that if you were able to like wave a wand and say, I would love to see this implemented going forward, what would those 3 things be for you?
Ooh, it's three, huh?
The
Okay,
three,
it's
three
three.
top ones. Yeah.
Um, for teachers to have a real voice. That would be number one,
Okay.
for us to be heard. And the things that we deal with day to day. A lot of decisions are made in upper offices and rooms sometimes from people that are far gone from the classroom. And so classrooms have changed. So I would say number one is to be heard. And number two would be to give us the resources that we need in order to be able to teach. It's not enough to have a textbook and computers. I don't necessarily love that the kids are on the computer all the time, which is why I do a lot of projects because they're losing the art of writing. Handwriting skills, like cursive writing, is like a foreign concept at this point. And I think if we get the resources to teach outside the box, that would help. And then the third thing I would say is, as a teacher, if we would have more conversations with each other, if we could collaborate more and talk more and try to understand each other more. It's not the lower grades' fault. It's not the grade before them fault. And stop doing the finger pointing. And if we can come together and figure out what we can do for our kids as a whole, because one of the things I love about my principal now, she says, it's not just your class. All of fifth grade is these are my students. And it's true. It's true. So,
One thing that, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying just building those relationships.
I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on here, because I remember many times you share stories of kids who you were their teacher at this age, and they remember you from middle school, high school, and they come back, or when they graduate, they're telling you that they made it all the way through, and they felt proud enough to remember to go back to you to say, because I was in your classroom, this is what carried me through, which is why I think the foundation really does start at the group that you're teaching at this point in time, because like in Christian school, they didn't have, like, from elementary all through, no writing classes. There was no cursive. There was no nothing.
Lost.
Well, yeah, and we had to buy our own handbooks here, me and Charles, to teach them how to do like cursive and different things like that. So I love what you were saying, that it'd be good to kind of get back to some of those different things and remember to teach them and what have you. So let me hop on here real quick. I see. Hi, Jackie. Jackie's on.
Hey.
Want to say hi to, oops, hold on, make sure I hit this right. Jackie Starks joined us as
Hi,
well.
Jackie.
So thank you all for joining in. So I have a couple more questions for you. Okay. So if someone was to ask you what you know now after being in education for as long as you've been, what is something you wish somebody would have told you when you first entered into this field?
Beware of energy suckers.
Oh.
They try to suck the energy out of you.
Okay.
And I say that joke. Okay, so because this is how I am, I laugh and joke all the time. But there's people that are just negative, and everything's bad, and so that's another side that can be draining sometimes. And it's not always teachers. It could be parents. It could be other staff members, maybe kids, especially when you get that behavior classroom and it's a whole bunch of things going on, that can really drain the energy out of you. So I wish sometimes when you go to school to be a teacher that they would tell you the reality of what it looks like. Again, and one of my reasons for textbooks, they have this beautiful picture of what a classroom is and the teacher standing up front, and that's not true. In some cases, yes, but the reality is you're putting out little fires over here. You're dealing with kids that don't want to work, kids that can't work, kids that don't understand the work. You're dealing with kids that have social issues at home, so you're trying to get them to learn, and mom and dad just had an argument and dad's sleeping in the room with the child. Like, I feel like I have heard every situation. So I think if somebody would have said, be prepared for the reality. Your lesson may not even go on that day. It just depends on what needs to happen. I love having class meetings when I'm like, okay, guys, you know what? Let's talk. There's a disconnect happening between what I'm trying to do and what you're doing. So let's talk.
You bring up a really good point. And I just have two more questions after this because you said something that's like, I really want to highlight it and get your perspective on it. You mentioned about the energy suckers.
Mhm.
But I also equate that now to today, the mental health for educators. There's so much of that too. Like we mentioned early on about coming to school, and sometimes you don't know what's going to happen with all the different climate happening around schools, but also just the day-to-day things. Like, what is your experience on how to protect your own mental health when you go to work? Because it's not just school stuff. It could be stuff outside in your
Yeah.
personal life. It could be all kind of things. So how do you protect that?
So to speak personally, I protect that with
Mm-hmm.
me praying my personal
Yeah.
relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
When I drive to work, I have got to have my worship music on. I have to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I wake up in the morning, I have to become centered in reading
Yeah.
God's word and just getting ready for whatever may come that way, my way
Right.
that day. In my classroom, I actually do have some little crosses hanging up around my desk and my scripture. Um, but again, I think for me, it's just when for me, my center is Christ. And so that's how I get through. That's
Yeah.
how it's funny when I hear my kids say certain things when I'm like, my sayings are Lord Jesus and Jesus be your friends. Oh, sweet Jesus. And when I hear the kids say that, it makes me laugh. Like if somebody does something, like
Yeah.
today, one little boy, and he's from Iran. He was like, oh, sweet Jesus. I was like, yes, call on him because right now. So
Sometimes you need to.
I laugh because they say the things that I say. But I love that. I love that my kids know where I'm at spiritually. They know.
Yeah.
Um, but I also don't impart that on them if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. But
Yeah.
you're an example, and it reminds me, you and I know we I was leaving high school when you were coming into it, but Miss Holloway,
Oh,
she was an example for us,
yeah.
and when I think about that, things that she would say, and even to this day, when she still messages here or there,
Mhm.
when I think about that, when you leave a lasting impression like that, you never know what those kids are going to take with them. They're,
Yeah.
I mean, at this age, them saying, sweet Jesus is one thing, but when they become
Mhm.
a little bit older, it could be a
Yeah.
totally different meaning for them,
Yes.
completely different meaning. So.
Yes.
So let me ask you this, and if anyone has a question or wants to say something, feel free to put in the chat. We are totally open to answering anything. But I want to know what type of legacy you want to leave whenever you decide to leave the field. Like, what would you want to say? This is what I want to make sure my mark means.
Good question. I think for me, every child that comes under me, I want them to leave knowing that they're special, that
Yeah.
they were seen and they were heard, they were loved, they were cared, and that it doesn't matter what their circumstances are, they
Mm-hmm.
can choose how their life goes.
Yeah.
I've been blessed to teach kids that come from harder walks of life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Teaching for 10 years in a district that was really hard, a lot of different issues, but some of those kids have gone on to have families and to like one just she sent me pictures, two kids, one's a teacher now, and it's just letting them know that their circumstances didn't stop them and that I helped instill in them
Mm-hmm.
that no matter what,
Yeah.
keep going. And when you feel like you want to give up, take a break, take a moment, but don't give up.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you do need a break sometimes. Um, Even with my daughter, she at one point was, I don't want to go to college, mom. I don't want to go to college. And I
Mm-hmm.
did not get upset. I didn't pressure her. I said, okay, not a problem. So what do you want to do?
Yeah.
And I want to own my own business. Okay, no problem. Who's going to do your books? Who's going to do your contracts? Who's going to do this? I said, you want to know a little something. And
Yeah.
so just having those simple conversations, I want students to know when they leave me my legacy,
Yeah.
that you don't have to do a society track.
Yeah.
Everybody's not college bound.
Yep.
Everybody's not trade school bound.
Yeah.
Um, there's other aspects for people in life. And so I want them to know you're not in a box.
Right.
Um, so you create your path.
Yeah.
And I pray you do it with God, but you create
Yeah.
your path.
No, no, and I love that. And actually, that was gonna be my last question, but I do have one
Hi,
more based
Kayla.
on
I'm
what you
sorry,
said.
Kim. One of my students just came on. I had her
Uh,
in third grade, my first year. She's the one I was talking about. She is a teacher now,
awesome.
engaged, just had a baby, beautiful baby girl. Hi,
Well, see, this is about making impact. And then this one made me laugh too. When Felicia shared that you used to give a look. And I remember some kids said that about you give them a look and they know, don't play.
Kayla. Yeah, yes. Sometimes those nonverbal cues let them know. Because sometimes, I mean, really think about it.
Yeah.
Sometimes nonverbal cues have a powerful message.
Yes, they do. They
And
do.
so, yeah, sometimes you can look and it says all over the face what's going on. Um, but again, it goes back to what I said earlier. Sometimes that's the mama in me,
Mhm.
where I'm like, now you know better.
But it
So,
also shows that you care.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like I'm an advocate for my students. I'm
Yes, you
a
are.
defender for my students.
Yes.
When situations have happened and I'm like, who said what to you on the playground? Okay, let's go talk about it.
Yeah.
Or when they're like, Miss, this is what some teachers said when they try to tell me about other teachers. I'm like, okay, well,
Mhm.
let's go talk to them and
Yeah.
let's see what's going on. So it makes them feel like, yeah, Miss Frazier got my back.
And they carry that on. They really do. Because I remember even sometimes you would have like I always call it a mini grocery store in your room. But for
I still
kids
do.
who didn't have food,
I
I
still
always
do.
thought it was a beautiful thing because they knew they can come and get something to eat from there. And I'm not sure if that would get you in trouble saying that in all settings,
No,
but
no.
that is so key because I'm sure they felt safe in knowing that they can come and get something from you. And it also reminds me too. I remember when Christian was having a rough time with some bullying when he was younger, and it was that one teacher that kept seeing him. You use that word a
Mhm.
lot. I don't know if you realize it in the interview. Um, that you want to make sure they feel seen and
Yes,
heard. And
yes,
he has carried that with him all from literally elementary to high school. He loves these two particular teachers, Miss Deverich and Miss Thomas, because they always made him feel seen and
yes.
heard. And that carries such amazing weight, such amazing weight.
That's one of the things that I've struggled with when I'm around teachers who say they're just kids. They're not
Mm,
just kids. That's one of the
yeah.
comments that irks me inside because they're
Mhm.
human beings.
Yeah.
They have stress, they have emotions. So when they're
Yeah.
telling me about their boyfriend girlfriend issues, tell me all about it because
Yeah.
I don't want you to go home and feel like nobody's listening to you. And
Yes.
then you end up hurting yourself. There's too many stories of kids who tried to talk
Mhm.
to a teacher or tried
Yeah.
to talk to an adult and the adult says, "Oh, you're too young. Oh, you don't have issues. You don't have stress." That's not true. So
Yeah.
what used to be is not what it is right now. These kids go through a lot. They are
Yeah.
presented with a lot. What I was presented with in high school, they're being presented with in elementary school. You be
Yeah.
shocked with some of these conversations. I'm like, okay, so let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it definitely is some touchy things. Um, but it's one of those things where you have to be present for your
Mhm.
kid and
You
you
do.
have that safe space.
You do. So I'm going to end on this one question. What would you say to date? I know there's probably so many of them. Your top two proudest moments as an educator, like saying, at this moment, if my career had to end, I am really proud of these two things.
One is building a relationship with my students to where I'm still in their life
Hmm.
to this day.
Yeah.
I think it's deep for me. And
Hmm.
it's deep when you hear, oh my God, it's deep when you hear the stories that they tell you
Yeah.
of what difference you make. So
Yeah.
that's definitely one. And the other would be the fact that I'm continuing on in spite of.
Hmm.
There's
Hmm.
so much going on. There's 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 just a lot going on in education, and I'm not going anywhere yet. So um, there is no dream deferred for me. I'm still here.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. Well, I want to thank you for
Thank
joining us and
you.
sharing. Like I said, we've
Thank
never
you.
had an educator on, but I do want to have more of these kind of conversations because I do think these kind of conversations help. It gives people a different, whether there's an educator watching, can be re-inspired by just remembering why they went into the field.
Yeah, exactly.
Remembering that it's about making an impact. It
Yes.
may not always be perfect, and I'm sure there's a lot of stress with it,
Yeah.
but that the key is that what was your first love when you first went into it?
Keep it.
So I want to thank, oh, Miss Middleton.
Oh
See,
my God, I'm sitting
now I'm
there.
dating myself, but Thank you
Hi.
for joining. Melinda Williams, thank you for joining on.
Yes, I'm Melinda.
Yes, but I appreciate each of you guys coming on here and watching this and sharing it. It really means a lot. And Nikki, thank you for the work that you do
Yes,
with I say educators, with students, because I
thank
know
you.
firsthand how passionate you are about it.
Yes.
And you go way above and beyond. So I love that about you. So
Yeah.
anything you want to say in closing thoughts before we end?
Just keep all educators in your prayers. Keep the students. Keep
Yeah,
schools. Um,
yeah,
just definitely keep us in your prayers. And when I say prayers, just cover everybody because there's a lot going on, and not all of it is curriculum based. Some of
yeah.
it is just the social aspects of education, and yeah, just pray for those kids that are going through because they need it the most.
Thank you. Well, that is all we had tonight. And thank you guys for joining us. I appreciate it. And you guys have a blessed night.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.